Within 5 minutes of Heated Rivalry, both the book and the series, I understood why everyone was obsessed with it and is obsessed with it, and I will show you why. Hi friends, welcome back to the news video. I'm so excited. Today it's all about Heated Rivalry. If you don't know what that is, I will explain it in a moment, but everyone who knows, get excited. It's going to be such a good video. And yeah, let's talk about all the things, the series, the book, the actors, the production, of course, Ilia and Shane, of course, they're our babes. And let's go! Okay, before I explain anything, there's going to be so many spoilers to both the book and the series. So for the first 2 episodes of the series, there's going to be 100% spoilers as well. But also I'm going to talk about some of the comparisons between the book. And because I have already read the whole book, I might have also some spoilers for things that have not happened in this series. So if you've only watched the series but have not read the book or anything like that, then there might also be spoilers for later. Okay, what is Heated Rivalry? It is a book by the same name, by a Canadian author, and she's called Reid. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but I think that's her name. Anyway, yeah, so it's a book which basically it spans nearly a decade, Heated Rivalry, and it's about 2 professional hockey players, and they call Ilya and Shane, and now that sound is in my head, because in the series at the beginning there's an announcer who says it's Canada's Shane Hollander and Russia's Ilya Rozanov. And so that just triggered my echolalia. Anyway, let's continue on. Anyway, the plot is basically they meet when they're rookies. So when they're like 17, 18, they both are like, we want to get drafted to like the big leagues, you know, and they both get drafted to Montreal and to Boston, which are apparently like rivals, also apparently kind of in real life. And so it's like from the get-go, it's like very interesting. They also have really opposing personalities. So yeah, and so it just develops kind of like this rivalry, but then it's also this massive sexual tension. And so basically the Heated Rivalry book, there's it's basically like their story from the very beginning to when they are together basically, and it spans I think 8 years, so nearly a decade, which most of that is spent in somewhat of a situationship. And we have so many great supporting characters, really interesting characters, and so I think it's just like such a fun read, and also is already such a great show. But yeah, so that's kind of the basic plot outline. And then the book Heated Rivalry is the second book in a series of books which is called Game Changers, and I think the second and the 6th book are about only Ilya and Shane, I think, or mostly about them. And then there's other books about other characters, and obviously but it's from all the same universe, so they all kind of appear in each other's book, I think. But I have not read any of the other books that have nothing to do with mainly Shane and Ilya, so I will get to that. I still have so many books to read, so that's why it's a bit slow, as you can see my stack of books here. Yes. Okay, let's start with the book to series adaptation. Okay, so I'm 31 now. There's been so many movies and series which were adapted from books or book series, and some of them did well, some of them didn't do not so well. And so I think Heated Rivalry is definitely like they did so well, and so that's why I'm so excited, because I love it when they do it well, because we can also talk about some of the negative adaptations of a book to movie or something like that, or like series, because there's definitely examples, actually quite infamous examples as well. And so I have to say that really what was also really amazing with this is the director, Jacob Tierney. I think he just really got the vision of the book and how to like bring it to life, because in the book you can hear obviously a lot of inner monologue, what the characters are thinking, especially Shane. I think it's like really interesting to see in the book what he thinks, but also Ilya, because he does have this like, he's trying to be like super nonchalant. Now I have that echolalia in my head. Anyway, this is not what this is about. My name is Nate and I'm nonchalant. No. Okay. Anyway. But yes. And so I think he and the whole team just did a really good job. And in the casting, like, I've also made a video about this friend that Heartstopper came out in 2022. So you can also check out that video. It's really old, but you can watch it. I also talked about this, that they cast also so good. Like, it was like Nick and Charlie's like stepped off the page because it was also a comic, so you could literally see what they look like, but literally. And they look like Joe and Connor. It looked like also the same. Yes. No, Kid Connor. I think his name is Kid and not Connor. I'm sorry. Now I'm getting confused with Heated Rivalry. Anyway, when we Heated Rivalry, it's like, it's very similar. Like, they've got such a vibe. And I'm like, oh my god, this is literally Ilia and Shane stepped out of the book. Like, with everything. And like Connor and Hudson did such an amazing job. And obviously, Connor is the one who plays Ilya, and he's, I think, from Texas, actually. And so he does not have a Russian accent. And he did so well. I've seen so many comments from people who are Russian speakers. Were like, oh my god, like, there was barely a moment where I could notice that he was not Russian. There was only very slight things. But, like, basically, it was so amazing. And I was like, this is so good. Because there's been some fails. For example, one of my favorite books as a teenager were the Mortal Instruments. And then they announced this massive movie franchise with the Mortal Instruments, like with Jamie Campbell Bower and Lily Collins. And it was going to be like amazing. And everyone's like, oh my god, this is going to be like as crazy as the Hunger Games, as Harry Potter. And then they kind of didn't do well for several reasons. Firstly, because I think they kind of underestimated a little bit the complexity of some things that are happening in the story, to put that in only a few movies. And second, they also, I hope you cannot hear that in the background, there's constantly ambulances. And they also, yeah, now I lost my train of thought. I was talking about the Mortal Instruments. Wait. I was talking about the Mortal Instruments, and it was basically like the script was also really like wooden, and it didn't really fit well. And I think sometimes, I don't know how it is with like big Hollywood production of like movies, but like with TV series, and especially like with like series which are often also like smaller ones, or with BL series, they always have like lots of workshops so that the chemistry is like so good. And so, or they like have a lot of chemistry readings. And I have to say, it was like okay, but that's why I feel like the script and in general, like, it just didn't harmonize well. So I feel like that's why it was a bit of a flop. Then a series which did not that well, which was the Winx Club, like live adaptation, for example, or the Death Note one. And so that's why I'm like, it can be a really big hit, like Harry Potter, like The Hunger Games, like Lord of the Rings, right? But it also can be a massive flop. Okay, so as I was saying, a really successful book/manga adaptation to live action is One Piece. And I'm also wearing right now the Monkey D. Luffy pony. Because one of the reasons why it became such a massive success is because Oda, the writer/creator of One Piece, was literally part of every part of the casting and production process, but especially casting. He had such a big hand in this, which is why literally everyone was really satisfied. Even like hardcore One Piece fans were so satisfied, especially with the selection of Luffy, because he just embodies the Luffy energy and mindset so well. Like, even as his regular personality also kind of plays into that. And I think that's kind of the same with Heated Rivalry, because there you can also really see that Rachel Reid is like literally, I think, credited as consulting producer. So she has producer powers. She's like on set, she's there most probably there for also the script. Maybe she even wrote the script. I don't know about that actually. But she definitely was there to like consult in the whole process. And so I feel like that's always a good thing, because like you as a writer have a certain vision of the characters, how they behave, how their inner life is, maybe even things that you haven't written down or that are just part of the character in your head but are not really on the page. So I feel like in general that's always like a really good thing, and so that's why I think this is also part of the reason, because then she could work together with the directors, the producers and the actors to like really make this vision come to life from the book to the series. And then of course Hudson Connor did an amazing job, and I've seen so many interviews with them now, and so I think also that they just like really vibe together as human beings with each other, which is really good, because I feel like then the vibe on screen is like easier for them, because it's not just like, you know, we are like colleagues, but they seem to be becoming really good friends. And in one interview, one of them even said best friends, and so I feel like that's like really good vibe on set probably. And they also seem like just really lovely human beings. So I love that. And so that's my thing. There's so many challenges, but I feel like Heated Rivalry really overcame them really well. And so that's why I'm so excited for the next episode, which obviously comes out on Friday. Yes, on the 5th of December. I'm so excited. Yeah, I cannot wait. Like, I'm literally counting down the hours for this. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Ilya and Shane's relationship. So it literally, I don't know where to start really. Like, because it's just so complex and so layered and so interesting. So we're gonna try to dissect it without me going on a 1-hour rant and then having to cut it down. So obviously, Ilya and Shane come from very literally different countries, different cultures, different languages, upbringings, everything like that. They meet because they're both gonna be in the NHL, yes. So it's gonna be they're gonna be in the professional hockey league, and they're gonna play against each other, because Boston and Montreal, they play a lot against each other. It's like a rivalry. It's like really important, and both of them are really good players. Like, they're literally the top two of all the players basically. And so it's like really interesting how their relationship then develops from like this like instant attraction to like the tension to like them actually like becoming like the situationship, which they last for 8 years and basically spans technically 3 countries, because Ilya does go back to Russia several times during the summer. And so it's just amazing. But let's not get too far ahead. Let's just stay within what the 2 episodes also provided, because there's already enough to dissect there. Okay, so of course, the first one is like a lot of also establishing. It's their meeting. It's, you know, it's the relationship is starting to develop, their first kiss, they're hooking up for the first time and all of that. And that was just also, I have to give out a shout out to the director and to the intimacy coordinator, because it was so good. And like, I watched a lot of Thai BL, and there's so many Thai BLs where I'm like, yeah, this is really good. But I've also seen some, especially like some older ones, or some who try to go for like the old school vibe, where I was like, this needs an intimacy coordinator. In general, I'm also really interested in that. I think that's such a cool like profession actually. So yeah. And so these scenes were so well done, like cinematographically, like from the cinematographic point, but also from the acting, but also from the angles, from the intimacy like vibe basically. And then it really develops quite quickly into this like kind of constant thing, and then they also start texting each other, which I think is a really nice thing to like see, especially in a TV series, because like I said, in a book you can hear more their inner thoughts. So I always like it when characters were not together and it's in a series, when they can communicate through like text, because then it's like you can still kind of see like their facial expressions and things. So it's like really cool for the vibe to actually also kind of see their inner thoughts basically on their face and on what they're kind of texting and stuff. And then there's just too many things I could really talk about. But what I really want to talk about is 3 things. First, I want to talk about the rooftop kiss, because it's like they had this fancy event, right? at this fancy ass event, and they're both in tuxedos, and they're like on the roof, and they meet by accident. Actually, they do both know that the other one is at the event, but also like the parents are like at the event and stuff, or like at least, yeah, I think. Anyway, and then they like meet on the rooftop by accident, and it's kind of awkward because Shane, my babe, is really awkward in this kind of situation. Like, I kind of get it, but he doesn't really know how to handle also silence, which I also get, which he's kind of giving me a little bit neurotic sexual diversion vibes, but I don't know, maybe that's just me projecting a little bit. And then obviously they have this whole interaction, which is very tension filled, and like obviously something's going with Ilya, and Shane doesn't know that, so he thinks it's about hockey, and then Ilya gets kind of mad at him, but then they also have this really passionate kiss, but it's basically like out of the open, like anyone could come up at any point. And I kind of love it that no one saw them, or that doesn't really become a plot point, because that always annoys me when really early on in the story they're already like being outed or something like that, because I'm like, they're not ready for that, and then it destroys their relationship. But that was such a good scene, both in the book and the series, but also in the series you could really see the actors, like everything in that, they're the characters, and it works so well, like the facial expressions, their body language, everything. Then we are in the bathroom. We're in the bathroom scene, where they have not talked or seen each other, I think, in like 4 to 6 months. And you can see that Shane is definitely rattled by that. He has tears in his eyes. He's like really rattled. And he's like, is this like, why is he ghosting me, basically? Which, you know, relatable. And also I have rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So I often feel like that, where I'm like, why are people rejecting me when they're not actually? But still, I always then kind of spiral from that. Anyway, so that's why, again, another point to him being maybe not a burden, because, yeah, even though he did get literally ghosted for 4 to 6 months, but still. And then they have this really tense, but also kind of tender, but also kind of like very interesting, like exchange there in the bathroom. And obviously it turns sexual, but still. And so I'm like, but it was so well done, because you could really see that Ilya, like especially in the book, you can like hear that he didn't want to be mean or anything like that. But he's someone who tries to like kind of be, like I said, nonchalant, be like a bit more, he's observing everyone. He's like really highly emotionally intelligent, but he doesn't show it. He doesn't show you what he knows, which is where you can see that as his trauma, that he's always observing everything, like gathering the information, and always having like an exit strategy basically, but also being like really grounded in himself basically. And Shane is just really like unsure. He's going through a lot. He's, you know, his neuroticism is like quite dialed high up, and totally understand that. And then of course the Vegas hotel room scene. Oh, Jesus. Like, I can't show anything from that scene on YouTube because it will definitely be flagged. So you just need to either rewatch it or imagine it. It's a very different, because before it's actually kind of tender and very like connection and intimacy. And this one is very raw and very, quite, yeah, like really like not impersonal, because it's still really, really quite intimacy charged. But both of them are like freaked out by that, I think. And so they have this urge to like make more, but neither of them gives really in, which is what leads you to the scene where then Shane basically leaves and he says goodbye, and Ilya doesn't even look at him when he's saying goodbye, and he leaves. And then in the elevator, especially in the series, in the elevator, he texts him and he's like, we didn't even kiss. Devastation, devastation, okay? Literally devastation. Okay, I've calmed down. Every time I think about that scene, I have to calm down for a moment, because it's so devastating. Because he also thinks this in the book, but they have to obviously show it, because it's really important. And if you want to know what Ilya thinks throughout this whole scene and the aftermath, Reid on her blog website, she has a whole point of view from Ilya, which I think a lot of people do need that, because like, you know, it's very interesting to really like see him in his complete point of view. So yes. What is this? Now, what this devastating, because you can really see that it's been several years. By this point, it's been, I think, 5 years. I think. It's been like, yeah, it's been several years. They've been doing this for several years. Then they had this whole thing with like the break where like Ilya goes in chain for like 4 to 6 months. And it was like, and he has had problems with his family and had to always go back to Russia and stuff like that. And then this one, you can see that they're becoming really attached to each other already. And that there might be like more feelings involved, because both of them are thinking basically about that they didn't kiss. And that is really devastating. You can really see that Shane also in that scene in the series, he's really struggling with it. It like brought tears to my eyes. It did also in the book, but in the series it brought even more, because you could see Hudson's facial expressions, and I was like, the devastation, okay? The devastation. No. And so, yes, I think it's just like, I think that's why also people are so obsessed with this show. It's because the actors are also acting out these emotions so well, and they have such emotive faces. And so I love that, because it's really telling basically that when people really connect to the characters, they get really invested. And then it's like the tension, the sexual tension, plus the emotional vulnerability, plus like these amazing actors. And it's just like this constant tension, and you're like, oh my god, like I need more, especially after a devastating scene. Because if you have not watched episode 2, then this is like a massive spoiler, this whole video basically, but still, it happens at the end of the episode 2, and you like that's basically the cliffhanger. So I'm excited for next episode, how they're gonna pace everything. I'm excited for more plot points and for them, and I'm just like, this is the best Christmas present ever. I love it. It's like a little advent calendar to myself. Treat myself. That's what I'm doing with this. Yes, I'm gonna definitely, when I'm gonna watch it, I already bought some ginger ale, so when I come back on a weekend for my little trip, I will drink some ginger ale, and I'm gonna watch Heated Rivalry. If you get the ginger ale thing, tell me in the comments. Okay. Now onto some of the representation political side of it. Okay, as it does start, okay, then it does start in 2009. And so that's very interesting, because at that point it was like, it was not great in Russia politically, because for like especially women and LGBTQ people. But I think by that point they had decriminalized homosexuality, and it wasn't a mental illness anymore. So, progress. And Obama had won in the US. So, it looked like it was gonna become better. Right. And so, but throughout the series, I feel like it's like Ilya always has this kind of like, he doesn't feel comfortable in his home country, which I totally understand, because literally so many people get imprisoned or die under mysterious circumstances because of their outspoken activism, because, and things like that. And so I think it's very interesting also how he always says that. And at first, I feel like there's even a scene in a book, so spoiler for the book, where I think Shane at first doesn't understand what he means, that it's that he doesn't want to go back to Russia. And it is because of his family, because of his father and brother, but also because of the political landscape, basically, which makes it like really impossible for him to exist there honestly and authentically. Which obviously for Ilya is a reason why he doesn't want to come out, because then he can never go back to Russia ever. Really, because that would be very dangerous, especially then in the later years as well, because then it just turns a turn for the worst, and especially like now in 2025 as well, where they're like also doing things like criminalizing LGBT activist communities, organizations, and things like that, right? And so that's why I think it's really important to talk about that, because it's like a different type of traumatization. Because yes, of course, if you live in a country which is ruled by patriarchal rules, it will have homophobia, and it will be traumatizing on like a subconscious level, which you can see in Shane, because he's so afraid that anyone can find out, because he does not want his career to end quickly, or that it gets derailed, or that he doesn't play with the team that he is at now, and those type of things, which do make sense, and I will get into that in a moment. But Ilya, it's a way bigger threat, because there's literal legal ramifications, like depending on, you know, how outspoken you are about certain things in Russia, you might even go to prison. And, you know, that's really like a definite possibility. And so that's why I feel like he is traumatized in a different level, not just because he has a definitely verbally abusive, potentially also physically abusive father, who's like really not a great person. Then his mother committed suicide. I hope I can say that on YouTube. And again, these are a lot of spoilers also from the book. And so I think he's just like traumatized in a completely different way, in a more conscious way, in a more like way that he does need therapy, definitely, immediately. Both of them do for different things, but I think like Ilya needs it more urgently even on some parts, because he, like, that's just like a lot of trauma, okay, at once, and stacked upon each other. And so I feel like that's why he does understand Shane, that also Shane is like really like skittish about it. And he also doesn't want to lose it, because if he doesn't get drafted, then he has to go back to Russia. And so he, yeah. So again, book spoiler, he talks about this with Shane several times about getting American or Canadian citizenship, right? Even a green card marriage, there is talked about at one point. And because he really does not want to go back, he even talks about that he doesn't want to go back. Again, book spoiler, once his father has died, he doesn't want to go back to Russia, because there's literally no one there that he wants to see. And he wants to sell a condo that he has in Russia, and he really doesn't want to go back. He wants to become an American citizen or like a Canadian citizen. And, you know, that's kind of what makes sense as well, because but then later when they have this conversation in 2017, it makes more sense that he becomes a Canadian president. Sag ich schon, kann er leider nicht. Anyway, that's not what I meant. Canadian resident, not president. Anyway, because by that point, Donald Trump has already become president for the first time in the US. And so I feel like that probably also did inform it a little bit, because also, you know, Donald Trump besties with Putin. Not the best thing if you don't want to have anything to do with Russia. Or when you're being potentially outed and, you know, things like that. Also, not always the best. Not in every state. Maybe in Boston it's fine, but not in every state they're very friendly to LGBT people in the US. Especially during the first and now also the second Trump administration or regime, if you want to call it that, which I do. Yes. So now I also want to talk about like the LGBTQ representation in like men's sports and the homophobia in men's sports, because that is obviously a very important topic in Heated Rivalry, because it is part of the reason why they don't either individually come out, or then also later at first don't want to come out as a couple until they are like secured and maybe even retired, because homophobia is really rampant in a lot of like these men's sports, which you know, or like in these sports like which are very dominated by men, you know, and hockey is definitely one of them, because they're very physical, very macho kind of like game and vibe. And again, spoiler for the book, when Scott Hunter comes out, it's like really brave because no one really is out and stuff, and so they don't really want to acknowledge it. I think that there were like gay players or queer players, and so I think that's really like cool that he does that. Because it's like really important in general for like the societal progress that LGBTQ people are not just tolerated but accepted and celebrated in every facet of their life, which also means that if they are professional hockey players, then and they're gay, they should still be celebrated because he literally wins the Stanley Cup, which very important trophy, you know, and then he's like, yeah, but it's also my boyfriend, and then they kiss, and it's like the best. I love that, so I'm so excited for that scene. It's gonna be epic. That's why. And so I think it's on also really just also for like children who are like LGBT children who are like growing up and they see then they nearly every facet of their lives and of the lives that they see that their LGBT people are accepted and celebrated. I feel like that would make the world such a better place, and it would also really help, I think, also with like the suicide rate, of course, especially also with trans people. Like it would be so good if that just like would be like a societal mindset shift. And so I feel like we do need to start with the representation in the media, in the news, in sports, in politics. And so that's why this is really important. But then also it's like really funny how in professional women's sports, there's so many out like professional like football players and like, or whatever the Americans call it, soccer, but like all these from all these different, and they are married and they have girlfriends and they are together even sometimes with a teammate and things like that. Like we also have that in Germany, and they're like really like a really good team, and they're really good players, and they have won world championships and championships titles and all of that, and it does nothing basically to their professional career that they come out as a lesbian, as queer, or whatever, that they get married to a woman. But it's the homophobia in men, I think, is like a bit different, because it's like the patriarchy is like the complete different brainwashing. And so that's why I think it's like really good if you talk about these kind of things. And as one of my lecturers in university says, that media is both a mirror and a window. It can mirror your experience, but can also show you, it give you a like basically a window into a different lifestyle, time period, experience of life, walk of life, whatever, and you can just experience that through the medium of film, of a book, of music, right? And I think that's really beautiful, and that's why I'm so passionate also on this channel, but also on my other social media channels, but also if you know me in real life, I'm so passionate about this, because this would literally change lives if people would understand that. So now we're moving on to racism, because it's not just homophobia and the literal very dangerous, potentially deadly homophobia of Russia, but it's also that obviously Shane is half Japanese because his mom is a Japanese woman, and so it's like really interestingly talked about, I think, in the book, but also in the series, kind of, that he's like this really big representation, because like he is like this really amazing hockey player, and then he's also captain, I think, at some point of like teams, and he's like really like up there, he's like amazing, and everyone is like loves him. But he's also, and I think his mom also says that to him, he just is there as the representation also for so many children who have not seen themselves represented, because it's a lot of white people, white Canadian, white American men who play hockey. And so I think that's also really important to mention. But yeah, that's why I feel like it's like really like the nuances are so amazing in the series, because yes, it has spicy scenes, and yes, it is the sexual tension, and like that's a really big part of their story, because that's how their relationship develops. But there's also like so many nuances and layers. So yeah, okay, let's fangirl a little bit about this amazing series about books, and especially about this amazing series. Heated Rivalry just really blew me away. It exceeded every expectation I had, and I know that many fans who were already longtime fans of the book, or who had recently found the book and then found out that there was gonna be a series like me, that like we were just like all blown away. But then once it had aired, so basically from Saturday midday here in Germany onwards, everyone's like, have you watched the series? Have you watched the series? And everyone's like, oh my god, I have not heard about this. Or I have, I'm gonna watch it. And then my whole feed on Instagram and TikTok is flooded with edits and with interviews and clips and everything, and it's just the best. I literally made a whole folder now just for them, for Heated Rivalry basically, because there's so many good ones. So if you have not checked out that side, I think that always makes the series experience even better. If you like talk with other fans, people who have been longer fans of the books, who have really waited long for this series, and like also look up all the official Instagram and TikTok accounts from the author, from the actors, from the official series. Obviously Crave Canada, who is hosting and producing also this amazing series. I love that. If they want to come also bring their products to Germany. As a child, here in Germany, we watch a lot of Canadian series on German television. We should bring that back. Okay, so maybe we can also watch Crave in Germany. I would be for that. Hit me up for more thoughts about that. Crave. So yeah. And so I'm like, that's just favorite part of that is just seeing all the reaction videos, smaller reaction recaps, and generally fangirl business on social media is so much fun, because like I love talking with people about it who have watched it. And even one of my friends who is Canadian, they said that they were gonna also watch it because they had read the book but had not watched the series. And so I'm excited to hear what she thinks, because they are like from Canada, so yay. I love that. And so I think it's gonna be cool because they have lots of insights on kind of the Canadian culture and hockey, because I never got hockey actually, hockey or ice hockey, because that's just not really the thing here in Germany. And when I lived in British boarding school, I tried once to play hockey. It did not end well, okay? Let's say that out. It's not my game, okay? I should not play games with any kind of sticks. It's not a good idea. I don't have hand-eye coordination. And so the edits are so amazing. And the funny thing is, I saw this clip of Connor talking about Ilya and basically saying, you know that this famous Russian band called Tattoo, right? And they have this song, and it's called All the Things She Said, All the Things She Said. And that's also the name of the song. And then people were like, oh my God, we're gonna make edits with that, which is on so many layers really cool, because of what the song is kind of about. And also because he is like playing a Russian character. And also because when the song came out, they promoted it as there's the two girls, I think they were girls, they were like 17, which dodgy, that's a different type of video. When we talk about that. And they were 17, I think 17, 18, when this song came out, when they brought it out. And then they said they were together. And then at some point it came out that it was kind of like fake, either staged by them or staged by the production company of their music video. And so now they kind of like fake lesbians. I don't know. I don't want to judge them too hard because they're like little children kind of. But anyway, and so that's why it was very interesting when he brought up that song, because it is very infamous, not just in Russia, but like in Europe and I think in the world kind of. And so I feel like that's really cool, and I've already seen 3 amazing edits to that song. But they also have another song, which I forget the name now, which would also be cool. But yeah, I've seen so many amazing edits to so many cool songs, to BTS songs, to Tattoo, to Bad Bunny. Yeah, so I love that. And it's basically just the best vibes, okay? So if you are not someone who's like, I just watch a show and then it's fine, like I love that for you, but that's not what I do. I let that series consume my whole being, think about it constantly, make content about it, talk about it, constantly to everyone who wants to hear it or doesn't want to hear it. Read fan fiction, rewatch all the episodes, reread the books. And that's just like my thing for the next month now at least. Might even become my special interest. We will see. Although technically is already, because queer media is my special interest, if you have not noticed. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out in my Fangirl Chaos Corner. Today, all about Heated Rivalry. I'm so excited to hear what you all have to say about this video. Tell me all about it. Since when have you been a fan? What is your favorite scene in the series? Have you read the books? Like anything like that. Just tell me all your thoughts. Are you on social media? Are you watching the edits? What's your favorite song to edit to? All that good stuff. Tell me all in the comments down below. And I'm excited for you to see this video, the next video, and bye!